Welcome to this episode of Learning Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to cover keying green screen within Fusion. So let's roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning Fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, cause we're learning Fusion together.
So here we are in Fusion and we've got some footage, and if you're a member, you can jump over to the channel posts up top and find the post about today's lesson, and you can download this footage to use. And just as a reminder, this is for this lesson only. You can't use this footage for personal or commercial use. So keying green screen. And as with any other Fusion project, there's really no one way to do this. And I know a lot of people ask, hey, when should I use this node? Should I use this node instead of this node? But there's no one way to do anything in Fusion. So as long as you're accomplishing your goal for what you're trying to do, you're doing it right. So with that said, let's go ahead and throw a gamut node on this. Because when we key within Fusion, most of our keyers are looking for a linear color space. And this being B-raw footage, we are not in linear color space. So we could either throw a color space transform, or we can throw a gamut node. We just want to get this in a linear space so we can work within linear color on our keyers. And like I said, there's no one way to do it. It depends on what you're doing. And with something like this, I would bring it back to its original footage so I could color grade it when we composite. So I personally would just throw a gamut node on it instead of a color space transform. So that's what I'm going to do. So shift space, gamut, and I'm going to throw a gamut node on it. And if I can remember what this was shot on, I believe it might have been the Ursa Mini. I just can't remember. It was a while ago. But I'm going to go from my DaVinci wide gamut to my sRGB, and I'm going to uncheck this add gamma. And my colors are crazy, so I'm thinking it probably wasn't that one. Let me try my 4.6 film. No. Gen 3. Yeah, that's probably what it was. So on my Ursa Mini, that was my color space on the Ursa Mini. So there we go. I'm going to throw it on the Blackmagic Design 4.6K film Gen 3 because it was shot on a older Ursa Mini. And I'm going to go to sRGB and I'm going to uncheck this add gamma because I don't want to add that gamma to it. So there we are. We just changed it to a linear color space, so now we can use our delta keyer correctly. And like I said, if you were going to throw a color space transform and color this in here, you would throw a color space transform and do it, but we're just going to go with a gamut. So let's go ahead and add our delta keyer. So delta keyer, and we've got our keyer. And looking at this shot, like I said, there's multiple ways to do things, but looking at the shot and knowing that this light was a pain in the butt when it came to keys, and this light kept turning on and off in my Sidus Link app, and I did not notice until after shooting all day that it was in some shots, but not in some other shots. It wasn't supposed to be on, but it kind of jacked up our green screen here. If you notice, it's super bright back here, and then we've got nice, smooth green screen in the back. So what we can do in these cases is we can actually have multiple keys. And a lot of times we actually use multiple keyers to get our key correct because there's really no one and done to grab a key and your shot is perfect. It's really never going to happen that way. So we want to use multiple keyers. So what we could do is we could separate our space within our little zones or create zones for keying. So easy way to do that is I'm just going to grab a rectangle. And I'm going to make it big so I can move it around how I want. And I'm going to separate this to get some of this lighter stuff up top. So I'm going to key out like this area up here separately than this area down here. So we've got a little rectangle, and we can take this rectangle and we can plug it into our effects mask input right there. So we're only affecting that area in there. But it's backwards because this first keyer, I'm just going to worry about down here. So on my rectangle, I'm going to hit invert, and we're just going to go ahead and just copy both these, Control C, Control V. And on this rectangle, I'm going to uncheck this invert, and I'm going to input this into this delta keyer. So now in this delta keyer right here, we're going to be keying out this top part and this one, the bottom part. And I should probably just flip these so I know this is the top key. This is the bottom key. So there we go. Now it's going to make sense in our little flow here. So let's go ahead and knock out this bottom key first. So when I key out, I like to turn my alpha on. And this way I can see what my key is actually grabbing. So once I do that on my delta key here, I can grab this little eyedropper here, and I can go over here and I can select what I want to key out. And I did just notice there's quite a bit of noise because this was the Ursa Mini G2. So I'm going to throw a noise reduction on first. So let me undo that key. And let's go back here to our little gamut node. And after our gamut node, let's add a noise reduction. So shift space, noise reduction. I'm going to add it. And then we can go from our noise reduction into our keyers there. So there we are, noise reduction. Now my noise reduction, I don't want to crank it up too much. I just want to get rid of some of that noise. And if we zoom in and look at her hair, what I want to make sure I'm not doing is slamming it to get rid of a whole bunch of noise, because what's going to happen is that hair is going to start getting fuzzy. So I want to make sure I'm only doing it to where it's getting rid of some of the noise, but it's keeping some of that detail in there as well. So there we go. That's a little better, a little less noise. So let's go ahead and fit, go back to our delta key here, turn our alpha back on. Let's select our bottom and let's select something. And you can see we have a little less noise. Now, when I'm selecting, what I want to do is make sure I'm not trying to select the most to key out the most. Like here, this would be great to key out the most. But if you notice, I lost all that detail in her hair. So what I want to do is I want to grab something around where I maintain that detail in the hair. And that's good. And we can fix all this stuff with some adjustments and some changes and some masks. Now, once I got my bottom-ish done, I can go ahead and go to my top delta key here and do the same thing. Grab this, and I'm going to find something to key out most of this stuff up in here while maintaining some of that detail. So there we go. We've got that key. And to be able to combine these keys, what we need to do is we need to use something that combines alpha channels. So we could use the channel Booleans node, or we could use a mat control node. I personally like using the mat control node a lot, because once I use this mat control node, I can use this to kind of control the mat for both my delta keys. So I can plug this one into the background, this one into the foreground. If we look at our mat control, it's going to be a little weird. But if I go up here and I select combine alpha, and instead of copy as our combined operation, I'm going to select add. So it just added those two keys together. But if you notice, there's a couple things. One, our keys are off. Two, we've got this line from where we had this rectangle separating, and it's going to do that. So what we need to do is go to one of our little rectangles, and we can just change it. And on there, all we have to do is soft edge it a little bit. We can go to this one and soft edge it a little bit. Make sure we're not getting any harsh edges anywhere on our key there. So there we go. That'll work. Now with this, I can go back to my two keys and I can start cleaning up some of this stuff. So we'll go to our bottom one first. And if I go to my matte section over here, I can use this threshold to start cleaning up some of that stuff in the background. But while we're messing with this threshold, we want to make sure we're keeping some of this detail in mind, because we don't want to lose all this detail. Because if I start cranking it, you can see we're losing that detail, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to pull this a little bit. I can increase this, start dropping that down a little more to where it's cleaning up some of that stuff, but I'm still maintaining some of this detail. But if you notice, we've still got some stuff inside showing up, some stuff over here, some stuff down here still showing up. But this is where we can come and use this clean foreground and start cleaning up some of that stuff. But just don't do too much, because we don't want to introduce new things into our little mat there. Additionally, if we want to clean up the background, we can use this clean background. But again, with this, it's going to start getting rid of some of that detail. So be very careful while we're doing this. So there we go. We've got that bottom part fairly decent. And when I'm doing this, when I'm keying out, all I really care about is what's happening around my subject. I don't care about all this stuff because we're going to create a garbage mat to get rid of all that stuff anyway. So now we've got that, we can go to our top keyer. So I'm going to select my top one. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to my mat control and I'm going to start cleaning some of this up. So I can start pushing that to start bringing some of that out. I can increase my threshold a little bit, start cleaning it up. Additionally, I can go clean my foreground, start pulling some of that out. I can even clean my background if I want, as long as I'm not pulling out too much info. So there we go, fairly decent key. But you can see we've got some stuff inside still, but I'll show you how to take care of that here in a second. Now, if you look, it don't look that great because if we go to our mat control here, you can see we've still got some crazy stuff going on. So the first thing we want to do on our mat control is go down here and select this post multiply image, because now it's going to clean some of that stuff up in post multiply. Now, if you notice, we've still got all this crazy stuff going on, and this is where our garbage mat comes in. So I'm going to turn my alpha channel back on, and we're going to grab a polygon node here, and I'm just going to create a polygon around all this stuff. And there we go. I'm going to rename this to garbage mat. So GM garbage mat. I know this is my garbage mat. And once I plug this garbage mat into the garbage mat input on our keyer, which is the gray input, you can see it just took it away. And I can use this same exact garbage mat for my other one. So if you notice, it just took all that stuff away. So now we have a much cleaner mat, or a much cleaner key going on. Now, the one thing is our subject is moving. So we're going to have to animate this little garbage mat here so it stays on our subject correctly. So all we have to do is just select this stuff, and we can animate it as we need. And I'm going to shut off these little handles so I can only see those. And I'm going to animate this. And it's just a matter of going through and animating everything as you need to animate. And I'm going to fast forward this so you're not sitting here watching me animate and create this mask. And we will actually, the next episode, we're going to be talking about masks and mats. So I'm really not going to cover this in this part. I'm just going to animate it real quick, and then I'll be back. There we go. We've got our little mask animated, so it's not covering our subject. So there we go. Now for some of this stuff that's popping on in the inside, so if I turn this back on and we zoom in and we try to find something that's going on, we can see there's something going on in our little mask here. Now we could come here and go to our top keyer, and we could try to clean this foreground a little more. And I just noticed our little mask is still showing some stuff. Let's clean that. There we go. So we could increase our, like I said, increase our little clean foreground if we want, but it starts introducing some other stuff. And we really don't want that. Let's increase this threshold a little bit. There we go. So what we could do is we could track some of this stuff, because what this is probably the little gem from her little crown thing she's wearing. So if I look, yeah, you can see that's reflecting some of that green, and that's getting keyed out right there. So what we could do is we could track that. So we can go back. So I'm going to add a tracker node. So shift space, not an alt keyer, tracker node. And I'm going to input our little noise reduction there. And I'm going to track this dark spot on her little gem there and just track forward. So there we go. We've got the gem tracked, and we can disconnect this, go here. And what we can do is we can create a little ellipse. So let's create an ellipse, and we're going to bring it up and place a little ellipse on that gem there. Let's reduce the size. Let's go to our alpha to make sure we're covering some of that stuff. And all we have to do is we can take this track that we have of our ellipse here. And on our ellipse, we can right click, connect to our IntelliTracker position. So now it's going to be attached to that. And since this is on the top, we have this little matte input. So we can input a solid matte into our keyer here. So I can just input that little ellipse there, and there we go. We've got our little matte attached. So now if I play, you can see it's moving around and keeping that little spot covered. Let's just make sure it doesn't go up, which it does. So we're going to have to fix that. And we're going to have to fix our little matte here as well. So all we have to do is just change that size so it's just sitting right in there, and we're good. So there we go. We've got that gem covered, and you would pretty much do that with anything else. And a lot of times, like stuff in the eyes that get reflected from green screen will show up in your matte. So anything like that, you just want to clean up. Now, if we look, these colors are looking weird, and that's got a lot to do with how these are cleaning up your spill. So one thing I like to do, instead of worrying about these cleaning up my spill, I like to clean up my spill myself. So in order to do that, what we can do is we could just bring these down, and I'm going to add a hue curves node. So shift space, hue curves, and I'm going to bring that in after my noise reduction there. And if we look at our hue curves, we got our original image back. And what I can do is go to my hue curves, and instead of changing that, I can suppress my green. So I can pull out my greens. So if I just click this, hold my shift key and drag it down, I can start pulling out greens from my image. And I just want to be careful that it's not getting too weird looking. But I know in my shot, I've got some orange light and I've got some blue light. So I want to watch how much blue in this orangish yellow I'm pulling out. But I'm going to pull this out a little bit too. So I'm going to bring this down just a tiny bit and bring my blues down just a tiny bit to get some of that green out of there. And even though you might not be able to tell much of a difference, we did go from this to pulling our green out, and we can actually probably pull out a little more. There we go. So we pulled out more green, and we can use this color instead of the color that's coming from our delta keyers or our delta keyers. And how we do that is all we have to do is we can grab a channel Booleans node, and we can go from our hue curves to our background. From our matte control here, we can go to our foreground. And if we go to our channel Booleans node, all we have to do is tell it to copy what we want to copy. So we want our red, green, and blue from our background. So red background, green background, blue background, but we want our alpha from our foreground. So now we're applying our alpha that we keyed out, this alpha right here, or this alpha right here, we're applying it to this image. But if you notice, it still looks a little odd. That's because there is no multiplying after our little channel Booleans node here. So what we have to do is hit shift space, just type in multiply, and we can add in alpha multiply. If we look at our alpha multiply, there we go. We've got our nice key. And you can tell there's a big difference between combining this to this image. If you notice, it's got all these odd, weird colorings around the edges that's coming straight from our key, but we can alleviate that by using this as our image and this as our alpha, combining it and then adding a multiply. So you can see how much better that key looks than our key coming straight out of our keyers. Much better. And then, of course, anytime we key, we want to make sure we're keying to our background and not necessarily just getting a key. We want to make sure our key is making sense to our background. So let me find, if I can find the background. I'm sure I have a sequence somewhere because this was a whole series of shots. But I'm just going to grab a still image of it. And it was a dark background, so I can grab a merge. Bring this background in, bring this into my foreground. If I look at my key, all I care about is my key. Again, I'm not worried about compositing or anything yet. I'm just worried about my key. And if I really wanted to see my color-ish, to see how my colors are going to match up to that, I could, after my alpha multiply, always add a color space transform. But of course, I'm going to have to add my gamut node back to bring it back to its original. So let's add or we'll just copy that, bring this gamut node in, bring this into our color space transform. Now my gamut node, just switch it back. So going from sRGB to our black magic. What did we use? We used our 4.6 film Gen 3 and uncheck our remove gamma. So now we're back to our original image there. And on our color space transform, I can go from our .6 film Gen 3 intermediate and apply my inverse OTF there to get an ish color of kind of how it's going to be colored later. So with this, once you have this, you can go to your matte control node and we can start fixing some of this little teeny tiny issues. Like we can blur our matte up a little bit to smooth it out at the edges. We can change our gamma if we need to change our gamma. We can even change our thresholds up, contract or expand it if we need to. And again, though, this is something we would be doing when we actually get into the compositing phase. So our primary thing is, one, just getting to this point of a good key within Fusion. So there we go. That is getting a key within Fusion. And just remember, on our alpha, we go through and make sure we fixed anything. Like some of this stuff popping up, we would get our garbage matte a lot better than this. But we would create other mattes and masks as we need to. And again, that's what we'll be doing in our next episode, talking about mattes and masks within Fusion. So I will see you in the next episode.